Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined as always by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And it is Wednesday with a 9-game slate here for you guys. We are going to be talking about the Boston Celtics and 76ers in this one. We've also got another video up, including the Kyrie Irving Dallas Mavericks taking on the Clippers. Also have our player props up for you, so make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Also want you to head to thelines.com. You can check out everything we're talking about there and more, and use that odds finder tool that we have up there. Make sure you're getting the best juice available. Choose the best odds available from those U.S. sports books all NBA season. Nate, let's go ahead and get into this 9-game slate and then talk season 76ers.
Yeah, we open with a couple of pretty non-competitive ones. Pistons are plus 13 at Cleveland, Charlotte plus 5 at Washington, Pacers plus 7 at Miami, and the Spurs are plus 10 at the Raptors. But then we get into some spicy games. Sixers plus 4.5 at Boston, totals 224 there. Kings in a rematch with the Rockets are minus 8 at Houston. The Wolves plus 5 at Utah. Rudy Gobert making another return to Utah. Interesting one there. Then, as you mentioned, Kyrie's debut with Dallas. They're plus 8 at the Clippers. No Luka Doncic, so it should be all Kyrie's car to drive there. And then the Blazers are minus 2.5 at home against the Stephless Warriors in an intriguing nightcap there. Celtics Sixers, I remember doing this one before the season started for the opener and liking over, expecting the Sixers offense to just be much more efficient than it was the previous year, where they had a couple of really ugly games against Boston. And sure enough, Boston won and the game totaled 243. And we're in another exploitable spot here because Boston's offense has really sputtered in the last 7 without Marcus Smart, but been much more reliable at home still. You know, the 4 at home in that span, scoring 118.5 versus 111 on the road, hitting 16.5 threes, getting over 27 free throw attempts per game in those 4. Because that's skewed by only 10 free throws in a blowout over Brooklyn. And, Philly, on the other hand, they're getting 31 free throw attempts per game their last 4 against Boston, and that's with those low scoring slugfests. So the fact that Boston's the number 1 free throw defense recently is not that telling, because they still can't keep Embiid and Harden off the line, and Harden was the key why we liked over in that opener. He's going to come into the season in shape. Everybody was forecasting that. This is going to be a different James Harden, a Harden on a mission. He had 35, 8, and 7 on a 165 offensive rating in Boston. And Embiid, sputtered his way, but still good numbers, enough to keep that offense going. Both guys are playing extremely well since early January. Embiid's averaging 34 and 11, Harden 20 and 11. And the Sixers on 2 days rest here. They're again, it's exploitable because they've gone under in 3 of their last 4. Really ugly, low-scoring games. 2 against Magic, 1 against the Knicks that had a 90 pace. So of course it went under. Yeah. But off since Sunday, and they're 9-3 to the over when they have at least 2 days rest this year, because those 2 guys carry such a ridiculous load, right? It's obviously going to help them get a pep in their step if they get a little time off here. Over in 10 of their last 14 road games. They went over in 15 of 18 overall before that 4-game stretch. And while the road offense is not as impressive as at home, still scoring 117 per game. And you look recently in their last 3, 124 defensive rating on the road and scoring 121. So they mix in that ridiculous over at the Spurs, which we also called. And we can definitely see another high-scoring game from the Sixers, who can keep their foot on the gas with Maxey coming off the bench now. Celtics, we know, have plenty of depth off the bench. And really the key is the Sixers can't guard big guards, right? And what does Boston have? They have 2 gigantic wings and then big guards in Brogdon and White, who can also bully those guards. And both Jalen and Jason had 35 in the opener. Malcolm Brogdon had a great game off the bench. Do like his numbers here, his props tonight. So I think there'll be enough scoring, and I lean a little bit towards Boston because of that advantage in the backcourt.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, gotta kind of think about clutch numbers at that point too, right? Like who's been a little bit better down the stretch. I would say it's probably been about equal for both of them, handling pretty good in both in clutch situations, fourth quarter situations. But I think to your point about the over, the matchup lends itself to that, and what these teams have been doing in these respective locations, right? The Celtics at home and the 76ers on the road, and at home over the last like 10 games or so. The Celtics dropping dropping 121 a game. You've seen these overs in the games that they haven't gone over yet. It's definitely pace. But when these teams have faced each other, like you said, specifically in Boston, the pace is at a decent spot for us to take points. The previous matchup in Boston before earlier this season wasn't even with James Harden, I don't believe, at that point. So there's still not much to garner from that, because at this point it is, I think the free throw attempts are a huge aspect of it, and 31 free throw attempts against the Celtics in their last 4 games for the 76ers, and even more, 33 of those came in Harden's first game at home against the Celtics. But I think that the Celtics, like you said, take what you will for the fact that they've been limiting free throws on the road or at home to over the last 10 to the tune of like second best in the league. We just haven't seen them do it against the 76ers team. And I think that lends itself to points as well. And then, yeah, 3-pointers. Are the Celtics going to be able to hit the 16 threes that they're making at home right now over the course of the last 10 games that they've played there as well? As far as limiting 3-pointers for the 76ers, they were really, really, really good, and they fell back a bit, honestly. There was a moment in time where they actually had like a month period where they were allowing a lot of threes. That's not the case anymore in their last 10 games as well. They've been limiting threes to the tune of like 10 a game. But the question is, are you going to be able to get in the way of guys like Tatum and Brown when they're shooting from there? Even Derek White, there's just more of them, more shooters than you can really, hope to handle, I think, right now for the way Boston's playing as well. So yeah, the only time that you see Boston go a little bit slower in pace at home is in a game like against Phoenix, which was a weird ass game that I don't even really want to talk about, that happened earlier this week. And then when other teams fail to come along because they're just blowing them out by 40. And I just don't think that's going to be the case. I think that there's only been a few games I can even see in their last 10 that they have failed to get to 223. So this is low because of I think a couple of the games that we've seen in years past before earlier this season, but that one is the best indicator of what I think you can expect in this one.
Yeah, and you could expect more pace with Maxey leading that second unit, and with Philly continuing to struggle in transition defense, second worst transition D in the league, even worse on the road, and struggling to close down the stretch. I mean, they're fourth in fourth quarter defense on the season, but allowing 29 in their last 3 in the fourth, which is well towards the bottom. Also struggling limiting free throws, 28 free throw attempts allowed in their last 3, including 39 to your Knicks, and 56 paint points in their last 3. And I mean, I do expect them to turn it around with the defensive intensity after those numbers indicate. They've certainly not taken the last few opponents as seriously because this is a huge rivalry and they will be geared up against the Celtics. But I think overall the efficiency from both teams, that they're top 6 effective field goal percentage, even in these spots where they have a little bit of a dip, in terms of the Boston recently or Philly on the road, they're still a top 6 scoring team. They have an unstoppable pick and roll combination in the Sixers, and then the Celtics just incredible depth and the ability to create mismatches on the other end. That's why I think we get another over here.
Yeah, and that's what the trends say. And, interestingly, everybody's bet this down for us, right? Like from 228.5 to 224.5, where you can find it right now, even 224 flat in some spots. But I guess, like we were saying, that could be due to some of the pace that we've seen the 76ers play, the slight unders that they've been hitting as of late. But the trends overall in the season are still that the Celtics are going over at home the second highest clip, and the Sixers still going over on the road 62.5% of the time. So I'm going to buy into that and buy into what I saw earlier this season when these teams matched up already. So
this game, Dallas is +8 at the Clippers. Total is 220 as they roll in without Luka Doncic, but with Kyrie Irving pending a physical that he will probably pass. And I mean, his props are already up. Books are expecting him to play tonight. 27.5 points for Kyrie. Josh mentioned his last debut with Brooklyn was phenomenal. 58-7 in 38 minutes. I believe almost hit a ridiculous buzzer beater in that one. So I think you can expect the change of scenery to do him well. And, the last 6 before the Nets just completely folded in Boston, which now we know behind the scenes, Kyrie might have already quit on his team or maybe decided during that game that he was quitting. He had a 138 offensive rating. He was just absolutely lighting it up with like 34 points per game, playing nearly 40 minutes in the absence of KD. And he's faced the Clippers twice with Brooklyn, averaging 33.5 in those games on incredible shooting splits per usual. So now without Luka, definitely gets the keys to the offense in his first one here. The Mavs have been playing better team ball without Luka lately in their last 4 here. Better, at least if you like a more freewheeling game. The pace is up to 97, which is very fast for the Mavericks in their last 4. They're getting 5 more assists per game, hitting more threes because they're spreading it out more. And their defense has been even worse. Plus the adjusted pace means overs. And I think the Clippers, this is another one where I think the total is a little low because they had been such under machines at home. They had the worst home offense for a while. They've played 10 of their last 11 on the road. So we just haven't seen much of that, since Kawhi got totally on his shit. And then they are just like looking like a great, efficient offense. We've only seen one home game, and they dropped 138 on the Spurs in that one. So the last 5 at home, in fact, I mean, they have 117 a game, 123 offensive rating. And their last 3, they've gone over, hitting 13 threes at 40%, over 6 in 6 of their last 8 overall, with games averaging 233. And Kawhi is a guy I'm really honing in on, who's going to be a leading player props today. I was shocked to see his prop at 25.5. It should be 27.5 or higher. He's just absolutely cooking. And look at the matchup against Dallas, which, like I said, is just floundering right now defensively and on the wing. And then now they trade away Dorian Finney-Smith, who is absolutely their best option to guard Kawhi. He's played them twice this year, once with DFS, once without. It hasn't really mattered. He 31.5 points per game on a 168 offensive rating. And in his last 8 against not Milwaukee, which we correctly called would be a bit of regression for both guys, 30.5 points per game for Kawhi. 30 plus in a win is over plus 210 at FanDuel. Worth consideration because there's just nobody to throw at him. I mean, Josh Green played really well in this Luka-less game here for the Mavs, and maybe he tries to guard Kawhi, but Reggie Bullock was absolute food for him in that game without DFS and when he came off the bench. So that's why I lead towards just high efficiency here. Even if the pace is below 98, I think we do get over. And I mean, I think Dallas, you get that boost. We saw them beat Utah without either of these scoring guards. I think you're going to continue to get that boost to say, we made a trade to make us contenders, to give us a chance this season. And that's going to continue to galvanize guys for at least 1 or 2 more games. So that I would lean towards them covering. I mean, especially after the Clips failed to cover against the Kyrie-less Nets in their last one. I have a hard time taking them to cover 8, but I think the over is my preferred one here.
Yeah, I have a really hard time getting them to cover 8. It's one of those games where I do think it's going to be back and forth on offense, just to sort of back up everything you said there. And in that sense, like, anything could really happen. It could be, a game where the Clippers are kind of up or hovering around up by like 4 or 5 and it's staying close, and maybe down the stretch there's some free throws and it gets close to 8. I think it's probably accurately placed in terms of the spread there. The total, I do like the over as well. I think you should believe in what has been happening for Dallas with Luka out, especially on the road in their last 4 without Luka on the road. Kind of mentioned a little bit of it, that 115 a game that they're scoring and the 120 a game that they're allowing with that 124.5 defensive rating, still playing at the same 96-ish pace that they play all season. But, getting some big contributions on offense, like you said, from Josh Green, and Spencer Dinwiddie was kind of balling out and doing his thing as well, which I think you can expect from Kyrie tonight. Same kind of concept. When Dinwiddie was in there without Luka, he was, scoring 24 a game with a 31.5% usage rate versus 17 points a game and 21% usage rate. There's got to be somebody who's the sun that is that this whole offense revolves around, right? And that's obviously going to be Kyrie. It's kind of Kyrie no matter where he is. So it's even going to be more so him and Jason Kidd's offense. And so I think you can definitely, like some points for him tonight, especially when you look at what he did, like you said, in that first game versus a really bad defensive Minnesota team, much worse than you're going to see in this Clippers team. But still, Kyrie is Kyrie, and I don't think there's anybody on the planet who can necessarily shut him down as much as slow him down. There wasn't as much, hate when he left Cleveland to go to Boston, so maybe he wasn't fueled quite as much when he dropped 22, but he had those 10 assists as well, just sort of showing that like when he gets into a new place, I think he's ready to show out, especially because he knows the best place to quiet everybody is on the court to make them forget about the ridiculous things he says when he's off the court. So I think you believe in the Mavs inability to stop anybody without Luka. With him, they're a little bit better. I think they're just without Dorian Finney-Smith, especially. This is gonna be a really, really rough game for them on defense. I think it's gonna be a really rough rest of the season for them on defense, as a lot of people are predicting. They're still making 15.5 threes a game. You got Christian Wood, who's also doing his thing to the tune of 4 more points a game without Luka. 12 boards versus 8 boards when Luka's in there, which is huge because they're not making up for the boards that Luka's not when he's not in there. So when they're playing without Luka over the last 2 seasons, you're talking about them getting 6 less rebounds per game, and they're already the second or worst rebounding team in the league, right? Without Luka over their last 5, they've been getting 29 rebounds a game, mostly because they're not stopping anybody from scoring each time down, as teams are scoring almost every possession, but also because they're not getting any rebounds and ending any possessions either. So it's all bad there, just leading to points, and that's why I don't really want to mess with the total, because to be honest, I would take Dallas to cover if I was going to take a spread in this one. But if you do like the total where it's at, and I guess really I'd like to parlay it as well with the money line for the Clips. But if I'm sitting here saying that I don't trust them to cover 8, I'm basically saying I think the Mavs can win this game with some crazy Kyrie nonsense on the court, and I really don't want to bet against that happening. I just want to bet that there will be more than 220.5 points scored.
Yeah, I mean, the difference is no Luka being out there more than anything that Kyrie might do is that you've put in some of the numbers, the recent meetings between the Clippers and the Mavs, and it's all just such a cat and mouse game. It's so slow paced. It's so much Luka countering what they're doing to guard him. And that's why it's this low scoring drag out game. And this is just going to be totally different. This is a completely different constituted Mavs team. We don't know how it's going to look when both of those guys get in the lineup, but with just Kyrie, we should expect this to be a much more fun style to watch, honestly, and definitely more high scoring. And I think the Clippers have started to hit their stride offensively as well. So yeah, that's why I agree on the 220 here, more than anything in terms of picking a winner.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up. I almost forgot that I did see in their last 4 matchups the pace is at 91.6, and the game is averaging basically less than 200 or so, 205 per contest, and that is a direct result of, like you said, Luka being in the game in those contests, and that's just not the case right now. He's not having to, it's not going to be him weaving and doing his thing, trying to get between guys on this Clippers defense. It's just going to be Kyrie trying to cook from everywhere. So, Nate, let's go ahead and jump into your first NBA play prop for tonight.
Yeah, it's Kyrie Irving's debut at the Clippers here, and going with the guy who's pretty much the opposite of Kyrie in terms of zero off-court drama or any sort of demeanor other than just being a machine scoring the basketball. But I guess in that sense, they're similar. In any case, I mean, Kyrie's at 27.5 points. Kawhi is at 25.5. And I think he's a far more reliable guy in terms of, where he's going to perform in the margins here. I feel like Kyrie could have 14 to 18 on ridiculously poor shooting, or he could have 50 like he did in his debut with the Nets. But either way, Kawhi's just going to keep doing his thing, which, except when he had a bad game against Milwaukee in that low scoring slugfest, he's just been utterly unstoppable lately. I mean, last 8 other than that game, 30.5 points per game, 142 offensive rating. That includes one against Dallas. And, he's faced Dallas twice this season now, 31.5 points with a 168 offensive rating. DFS, Dorian Finney-Smith was in for one of those games. He's a pretty good option to guard Kawhi. He is obviously gone now. Reggie Bullock was absolutely cooked when he got a chance to try to guard Kawhi, so that's not going to go well. And, I mean, Dallas has struggled in general against big wings lately, especially, I mean, really all season, the most points per game and 6 most rebounds to power forwards, and then the 4th most assists to power forwards in the last 15. Kawhi, 6 home games since the start of January. They haven't played much at home at all, but he's getting 28 at home, slightly more. And it's a 50, 40, 90 splits wherever he plays. It's even better on the road for what that's worth. But so 30 points and assists is the better odds here if you want to add something to the points, because I think he's honestly getting like 28, and then you're just tacking on a couple assists, you're getting better odds. Or you can go for him to get 30 and the Clippers to win, plus 215 at FanDuel. Like the juice on that one.
Yeah, hell yeah. I mean, the only thing I have a problem with is that you said Kawhi is not drama, and I would say that he has been a lot of drama. But other than that, I agree with everything that you said, and think that this is a good opportunity for him. I really like the points no matter what. I would like even rebounds in there, as the Mavs are so bad at rebounding, especially when Luka is not even in there. So you could throw those in and feel pretty good about that with Kawhi. I'm gonna go under because I want to make sure I get one in here with Miles Turner. Dude's been killing it, by the way. I just want to give him his props for the last 10 games. Even if you narrow it down to the last 6, he's averaging 20 a game and 9.5 boards. So why the hell am I going under? Other than he's playing the Miami Heat and specifically playing Bam Adebayo, against Bam in his last 4. By the way, I should say the prop that I like is under 24.5 points and rebounds combined. If you want to throw the assist in there, it's wild that it's at 27.5 points, rebounds, and assists when the dude doesn't get assists. I mean, sometimes he does. He doesn't do it against Bam though. In his last 4 versus Bam, dating back to 3 seasons ago, 10 points a game, 8.8 boards, and 1 assist in that time frame there. There was a game, or there was two games in there that he played against the Heat without Bam, and his numbers are a little bit better, but it's still 13 points a game and less than 10 boards as well there, with less than 2 assists. Miami limits centers to the second fewest points per game and rebounds per game, and is in the top 10 in limiting them to assists as well. And then they're limiting points in the paint, 3-pointers, free throw attempts, all top 10 in the last 2 weeks as well. So I just don't see a scenario where this is a good matchup for him. Miles Turner is also so much worse on the road. He's actually dropping 20 a game with 8 boards at home. On the road, he's looking at 15 a game and 8 boards with 1.4 assists as well, and that's all in 28 minutes. Gets a few more minutes at home as well. So I just don't trust he's going to even get the playing time or have any ability to get past Bam to get his props tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Miami, great everywhere on defense right now and playing at such a slow pace. What's the total for this game?
Yeah, it's 219 or it's 223 right now. Yeah,
223. Yeah, I mean, I would take unders on a few Pacers here in this spot, especially the guy who's going to have to go up against Bam. So agree wholeheartedly. The other game we break down, Celtics Sixers, and talk about the Celtics' size advantage in the backcourt and how they're going to press that. That's why Malcolm Brogdon is actually who I'm going with here, more so than either of the Jays, who both did have 35 in the season opener against the 76ers. But Brogdon's been doing his thing with or without Marcus Smart since the start of January. He's averaging 16.5 points along with 4.5 boards, 3.5 assists, and then 48, 48, 92 splits. Without Smart in his last 7, still same numbers, same splits, just a few more minutes per game. And, but they average out to that because his last 2 games have been quiet. Blowout against Brooklyn, that gross second half collapse against Phoenix last Friday that we don't really want to think about anymore. So Brogdon only 12.5 points as his prop, which is extremely low. It's something, he's had at least 14 in 7 of his last 8 without Smart, including 26 in a 39-minute outing against the Lakers in that overtime game. I think this is somewhat of a similar matchup against the Sixers. It's a very 2-man game, whatever you want to put it. And then there's 2 great players out there. They're both in the front court, and there's some terrible defenders in the backcourt. And Brogdon will push that. He'll push in semi-transition all the time. The Sixers are the second worst transition team in the league. So, I mean, as long as he's getting the minutes per 36, he's getting 21 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists per game. So the odds are not great on 12.5 points because I think it should be 13.5 if you want to go that route, or you can tack on rebounds or assists for like 4 more because I think he'll be getting closer to 30 plus minutes here in this one.
Yeah, I'm with it. Yeah, and I think that the bench for Boston should be able to score on this Philly bench as well, which is not great on defense once you throw guys like Montrezl in there and stuff like that. So with your Malcolm Brogdon bet, I would also probably bet on the Jays just in recent history, like you said, one of them. But rather than having to figure out which one necessarily, I think Brogdon has a low prop tonight. So one other guy with a low prop that we're probably welcoming to the show for the first time, Kenyon Martin Jr., KJ here. 13.5 points for the youngster. We're going over on that, minus 110 on DK. Nate's thrown in an idea about a double-double for the kid because it's so juicy, plus 575 on DraftKings for that to happen because he's getting really close, right? And the thought process is he's playing against a really soft Kings team here in the interior in a way that you can probably, just hope for the best and at least take his other prop of points in there. Last 6 for Kenyon Martin Jr., excluding that blowout versus that they played at OKC that just didn't matter after 2 quarters. 17 points a game, 8.5 boards in 31 minutes. Love to see the amount of time he's been getting, especially with certain guys like KPJ out of the lineup for a bunch of them. Double-double in 2 of those last 6 that he's played, 13 rebounds versus Washington and Detroit each. Both really, really soft down low as well, just like these Kings. 18 and 8 on 80% from the field in that loss to Sac in 32 minutes. That was just like a week ago, or not even like a few days ago. And like we said, the Kings allowing 4th most points in the paint on the road. Their opposition points, more than half of them are coming off 2-pointers on the road as well, which is 4th most. And they're allowing the 9th most rebounds per game as well. A bunch of second chance points in there for a guy who's attacking the rim on offense like Kenyon Martin Jr. So I think it's a pretty good opportunity for him and his athleticism to be a problem for guys like DeMontis.
Yeah, I mean, the Rockets are still, even with Jalen Green back, finding that identity in terms of just playing hard-nosed front court defense, rebounding. They weren't able to stop Sacramento, but still able to press their advantages on the other end in the paint, and that includes Kenyon Martin, who, yeah, I think he gets double-digit points here for sure, and it's just a question of, are the Kings going to miss enough shots for him to get 10 rebounds? It's incredibly juicy odds considering it's happened in a third of his last 6 competitive games. So it's worth rolling out there because the Kings actually, aside from that 140, they've regressed a lot when they're on the road. They miss a lot more shots. They tend to go under. I'm not saying take the under here because this involves the Houston Rockets, but I am saying maybe Kenyon gets an opportunity to get 10 boards at least, and you get a handsome payout.
Yeah, worth the odds there for sure, like you're saying. So that is all the time we have for you in this one. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Check out the other couple game videos we have up for you today as well. And until we see you next, happy betting.